Welcome to the Real People, Real Business Show, where we're talking with business owners who are in the trenches, everyday people who are working hard and have relevant and inspiring stories that you can relate to. Everyone we speak to is actively building and growing their business and is here to share their experiences, lessons, wisdom, and guidance so you can be inspired to take action towards your own goals. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Liz Wilcox. Liz is an email marketing whiz that is dedicated to creative ideas, helping others grow their business, and getting past those pesky roadblocks that everybody has. In addition to being featured on numerous top performing podcasts, Liz teaches online entrepreneurs how to package up their magic and turn it into email content that their viewers will actually want to read. Welcome to the show, Liz, and thanks so much for taking your time to share your story today. I know you've been on a few different interviews already today, so hopefully you've got another one in you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, I have been looking forward to this all day. I'm really excited. I love the whole real people thing. What you said, something in the intro, the trenches, and I flashed to, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I flashed to like when I was starting my business, I was literally like in a trench, no joke. Like I lived in an RV and, if it rains enough, it becomes a trench. So I'm really excited to share my story and, hopefully not only inspire people, but like inspire them to action. So let's go.
Let's go. Okay. Well, why don't you dive in? Tell us your story. Tell us how you got to where you are right now and became this email marketing whiz.
Sure. So I find a lot of other email marketers and just digital marketers in general, they kind of start off as service providers. Maybe they're a copywriter or, a funnel builder or something. And so they get see behind the scenes and then they finally, are inspired to do it for themselves one day. And that is not how I started. I started out literally in the trenches. So I don't know if I've ever even told the story of this, but I think your people. I lived in an RV and I was married at the time. We're not married anymore. And my husband was in the military. We had bought an RV to save money. And then I realized that, as I started Googling, like how to drain the tanks, how to do this, how to do that, I realized, oh my gosh, Ed, people drive these things. This thing has wheels. Let's go. He said, well, Liz, kind of impossible. I'm in the military. I said, well, you can get out. I'm going to start a blog when I'm showing him all these podcasts and things like that. And I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. And so I started it. And, I didn't even have internet on my phone. I was very kind of like this intentional parent. I took the internet off my phone. I didn't have Facebook, no social media. And, but dang it, I was going to do it. So I got back on social media. I started stealing the internet from like the campground laundromat, or I'd go to the library, when my husband was home. And I really, I just started blogging. I started, basically word vomiting all over Facebook. Hey, I started this blog. Hey, I live in an RV. Hey, I know you haven't heard from me in a couple of years, but, check it out, check it out, check it out. And I knew I wanted to start. I knew this was going to be, my quote unquote ticket to the road, to this full-time travel. I now had this idea that I was going to hit the road. We were going to do it with the blog. So I started listening to podcasts like this, watching webinars, Facebook ads like crazy. Once you Google how to start a blog, Facebook attacks you with, all sorts of service providers and other, blogging about blogging stuff. And so I started watching webinars and I heard, like you always talk about, these crazy, outrageous, inspirational stories. And I'm like, oh, I could make 6 figures in 18 months. Yeah, sure. Ed, we're going to be rich, And of course it didn't turn out like that. A spoiler alert. It is now 2021, 5 years later. I'm still not a millionaire. I'm getting there. I haven't given up. But I heard what I got out of that was email marketing. It's the biggest bang for your buck. And I lived in an RV. Like I said, I had a toddler. Spoiler alert, toddlers don't care about you and your business. All they care about is change my diaper, feed me, take me for a walk. And so I had a limited amount of time. And remember, I don't even have internet. I had a limited amount of resources. So if email is the way to go, that's what I'm going to do. And so I just committed to sending out my newsletter every week. I committed to telling people, hey, this is going to be my ticket to the road. This is a business. I'm going to sell something. After about 6 months, I asked people, I was kind of all over the place. I wasn't even traveling yet. And I had this RV blog. And so I said, why do you follow me online? And I asked my email list this. And they said, well, Liz, you're really funny and you can tell a good story. And so I was driving home from the gym one day and I said, oh my gosh, that's going to be my first product, a collection of funny stories. Now, remember, I don't even have, internet. So I started asking other bloggers to give me stories. So collection, right? So it's going to be this person, that person, and we'll do affiliate, I'll give them 50% of sales that they sell, if they give me a story and they can be featured. And it worked. After 6 weeks, I had something like 12 or 13 stories. And I want to mention the name of this book and what the book was about, because I hope it inspires you as you're listening, like whatever it is your idea is, whatever it is you're working on, you're building, you're trying to get to that 6-figure mark and beyond. It's a better idea than what I had. Okay. This was a book about crappy stories, literally in the RV, where the sewage goes, right? You have a tank underneath. It's called Stephanie's eyes. You can't see her, but her eyes got really big. Yeah, listen up. So in the RV, the tank where the sewage goes is called the black tank. And so my book was called Tales from the Black Tank, a collection of hilariously crappy RV stories. And within the first 90 days, I made $7,000 from that book with an email list of 300 people. And it got picked up by an international sponsor where they gave it away to their audience for free in exchange for their email, as a lead magnet. And they gave me $7 for every single lead. Outrageous. I was only selling the book for $10. They gave me $7 for each lead. So I'm telling you, if I could make that much money, my very first product off poop, like with limited internet and a toddler, up my butt, so to speak, like you can truly do it. You can do it. So fast forward a few years, I had a couple other crazy success stories like that, where it's not like my audience was huge. It's not like my prices were crazy, where I was, like I said, making 6-7 figures, but my conversions were good. People seemed to really like me. And so I took all that information that I learned from the RV blog. I sold that blog in March of 2020 and went all in on the email marketing. So that is my literally from the trenches story. And I can give you lots more examples if you want of how terrible it was to build a business with limited internet and traveling around.
So how long were you an RV blogger? Like how long were you on the road?
I started my blog in October of 2016. We got on the road about a year later and we traveled for a few more years. But the RV blog itself, I had for 3.5 years.
And is that the one that you sold?
Yes. I actually own a second RV business with 3 partners. It was kind of this idea. I had an idea for a digital summit before digital summits were a thing. This was in 2017. I said, hey, you guys ever heard of Shark Week? Let's do that like RV week, right? And so we did it on Facebook Live. And now that's actually, that's another income stream that I have that we're selling that business as well in the next 6 to 12 months. I have lots of ideas. If you can't tell, I'm kind of all over the place. But I had that blog for 3.5 years. We traveled all throughout the country, mostly East Coast. And honestly, it was really stressful. Like I said, I'm no longer married. That's, it was, if you Google or if you look on Instagram, #RV life, you'll see a lot of, really inspirational posts, really beautiful places. But the truth of the matter is when you're trying to build a business, you don't already have anything established, you're traveling around, you never know what the internet's going to be, it can be really, really stressful. There were times when somebody started paying me to be like a mastermind leader in their group program. They just saw what I was doing and they were like, Liz, you're clearly very dedicated, do you want to be the facilitator of this thing? So I said yes. There were times where I would have to one time I was in an arcade, and it was all, dark and the glow in the dark paint. And I'm conducting this meeting, trying to be professional. The internet's going in and out. And, but I never gave up. I was like, this is my ticket. I know it. I grew up super poor. I still provide for my mother financially. Probably about 80% of her income comes from me. And so like there was no choice. I had to make it work. I had to find internet. There were times I would drive 40 minutes just to publish a blog post. I did meetings in grocery store parking lots. Lowe's department store has great internet. And I would just sit outside in Lowe's, no air conditioning, just sitting inside that rig while my husband and my daughter were just wandering around to let me do my live show. It was no excuses, any means necessary type of thing, because I just truly believe that I could figure it out,
So there's two things. I mean, I love this story, but there's two things that stand out for me with that story. One is that what I maintain forever with every client I've worked with and with all of my audience is that really the key to success or the key to progress is consistency. And you were extremely consistent because you had to be, right? There was no choice. There was no other way. And you were consistent because it was just what you had to do. And though it was driven from necessity, I find a lot of people, even when they don't have that kind of pressure on them, the ones who can drive themselves to be consistent and to keep showing up and to keep doing the work are the ones who continue to make progress. So a lot of people have this, like we talk about real business, right? A lot of people have this sort of notion that there's going to be some, like they're going to go out there and it's going to be some big breakthrough and they're just going to like, they had the most creative idea, or they had they focus on the idea as opposed to the execution, right? And it sounds to me like what really served you was your execution, but you're also very creative, which is helpful. But I think I maintain that the key to the success is the consistency and the execution. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then I've got the other thing that strikes me is just how creative you are at solving problems. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how creativity has served you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. Number one, consistency. Anytime I got on a call with someone or I'm on a podcast and they say, what's your number one thing for success, or what's the thing you're most proud of, or whatever, it's I will not give up, right? I'm going to show up every day. Even if I'm sick, for a week and I can't actually work, in my head, I'm showing up. I'm a business owner. When I started my blog, I started it as a business. It wasn't, oh, well, this is something I'm really passionate about, so I think it's a really good idea. I was like, no, I think this is going to make me money. But at the same time, it was, no matter what, I was going to show up every day, even if showing up meant, just not giving up, saying like, okay, Liz, you can take a break right now, but tomorrow you really got to get that thing done, right? That is still showing up. And even I sold my business, I sold that blog because it was making, I didn't want to be the RV poop lady forever. I was starting to get recognized in campgrounds, and I had kind of pigeonholed myself. And I said, okay, I'm actually really smart. I have a master's degree in leadership. Like, I don't want to talk about this one thing anymore. I really want to help other people, with the email. So I sold it. But that was even, some people will say to me, Liz, it looks like you're doing a lot of things. You've got that book, and then you had a course and a summit, and now you're doing the copywriting and the email marketing. And, it seems like you're just constantly pivoting. But in my mind, I've always been very firm on my vision. This is going to be a full-time income. This is going to get my entire family, from here on out, generations to come, out of poverty, right? And so when I realized the RV blog wasn't going to get me there, it had gotten me here, but it's not going to get me there, that's when I sold it and I, pivoted. So to me, that's the consistent action, knowing what your vision is. If you've got a strong enough vision, you'll show up. And it might seem like you're all over the place to people, but always be firm on your vision and then flexible on the details. I don't care how I get my family out of poverty. I just know that I'm going to do it. And then as far as the creativity go, thank you for noticing. I I love being creative. It's actually something that, as odd as this sounds, I've been trained to do. I was in this program as a kid called Odyssey of the Mind. And it's like, you can join oh, you know about it? Awesome. Stephanie knows about it. If you don't, Stephanie, I hope you put it in the show notes because it's such a cool thing. If anybody listening has kids, if you have kids, like check it out.
I
And
totally remember that.
yes, I was in it from 5th grade to 12th grade. And then I judged for like 5 or 6 years. And it's this creative problem solution competition. It's like, like your kids join soccer, they can join this. And, really trains you to get creative, to say yes to your idea. I get a lot of, wow, Liz, you just have an idea and you execute like very quickly. And I will say, like, I had the privilege of being trained to do that. So if you don't have that muscle yet, if you've got a lot of ideas, but it's hard for you to say yes, 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 and take those consistent steps that Stephanie and I are talking about, it's just a muscle. The same way, if you walk every day, your legs will get stronger. If you just say yes to one little thing every day, you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And you're going to get more confident in your creativity to say, like, yeah, I am just going to throw this out there and see what happens. Like with the book about poop, like I had no idea. I was like, maybe if I sell 2, that would be so amazing. $20, holy shit, but I ended up making more money than I had made the year before. So just letting your creativity flow and saying yes to it, even in a small little way every day, has served me. And I believe it will serve you too.
I love that because so there's another thing that we should talk about here too. And this is what one of my clients is diving into right now with her new brand, this juxtaposition of creativity and structure. And I have a lot of clients who are creative professionals. And when I say to them, look, freedom is in the structure, they go, no, I don't want to lose my creativity. But I'm like, no, you put your creativity into a container, and that's where you get your freedom. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how you have enabled your creativity with a little bit of structure.
Yeah, I love that. So number one, I'm not a very visual person, and I've always worked for myself. So I want to mention
Wait a second. I've seen your website.
I paid for that.
What you're wearing, everything about you is visual.
Well, that's because that's called marketing. That's me going beyond my creativity and outsourcing. So if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see me, but I've got NSYNC posters in the background. I've got a pink tie-dye shirt. Usually I have a headband on. I forgot my headband today. Everything is very curated. That is true. But that is outsourced. That is learned. I'm a very auditory person and I'm a writer, so I can write really well. But anything else, I tend to outsource. But thank you for noticing. So I just want to say, so I have a paper planner, and I find that allows me to contain my creativity. So what I mean by that is if you have Asana or Monday or some kind of thing that, I find that I'm so creative. I'll go into Asana and I'll create this beautiful project. And I'm like, oh, and this is when the ideas start to come. I'm like, oh, I could do this and that task and that. And I do a billion tasks. And then I proceed to never log into Asana again until I want to create another big project. So I've found that paper planners work really well because I can only write so much in the day. And so it really forces me, like I preface, like just do one small thing a day to really pick out what that small thing is or what those small things are. And then I can start to see the bigger picture, right? That's my vision. And what are the steps? And I just find also I don't tend to buy into that, oh, well, if I have structure, I can't be creative. You can be creative in everything. I'm being creative in the way I'm showing up to this podcast, but I can be creative with it. I can talk about something different. I can get onto different types of podcasts that have different audiences and, talk about the same thing, right? I'm an email marketer, but, with creativity, right? Like I did 3 podcast interviews today. The first one was for tech startups. The second one was for creatives, and it was more about, being kind through marketing. This one, real people, real business, very different. But the podcast itself is very structured. By the end of the year, I'll probably be on more than 60 podcasts. That seems like, oh, that's stifling my creativity. I want to talk about whatever I want to talk about. But I think the truth of the matter is, if you want a real business, then you have to have some structure. You have to have, your vision. If your vision is to hit 6 figures, what are some things that you can structure into your business? Mine was getting on podcasts. And, some of that is outsourced, some of it I do myself, but I've said I want to get on lots of different podcasts. I don't want to just get on, the top 100 marketing, whatever, because I'm going to say the same thing over and over and over, right? But if I can get on lots of different types of podcasts, I can have lots of different subscribers, and that fulfills me as a creative person. Like, yeah, I talk about email marketing, but I don't just talk to, coaches. I talk to bloggers, people with Etsy shops, other types of makers, e-commerce, tech startups. I did a project for someone this year that it's a company that they'll launch your remains into space. Okay. Like, if you go to my website, you'll think, yeah, Stephanie just did a double take. If you go to my website, nothing about that says, I want to help you sell more, afterlife services. But it's because I show up as my most creative self. It's because I say I can help lots of different people with this one thing, right? That's where I'm being shallow, that I can be very creative. Also, I mentioned I have another RV business that helps me get my travel stuff out. If I didn't have the structure, if I didn't have my paper planner and my Google Calendar, and even, accountability groups, business coaches to say, okay, Liz, what do you want to focus on this 90 days or today? I wouldn't be able to do that. And I wouldn't be really making any money. So I challenge you, if you think that, if, I've got too much structure, it's going to stifle me. I challenge you to, like Stephanie said, like, what if we just put your creativity in a container and see what happens? Because I think if you put your creativity into the container, it kind of picture it as your creativity is bouncing around in the container. And if you bounce it around enough in that container, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Kind of like if you nudge the edge of a circle, the whole circle grows. But you need that circle, you need that container first, and then it will grow and grow. You'll get more people, you'll impact more, you'll be able to serve more, and you'll be able to make more money. But you've got to contain it first.
So I love all of that. Your brand right now is focused on email marketing.
Yes.
You have a very clear brand and a very clear kind of feel to your brand, and you are attracting certain types of clients. But the question that everybody always wants to know is, how are you finding your clients? How are you attracting them? Who are they? And how do you continue to build that audience?
So fun. Yeah. So number one, obviously, I've talked about it, podcasts. I get on lots of podcasts. I find, and I'm sure Stephanie will agree with me, when you can get in front of your listeners like this, it's a very effective way to build that know, like, trust factor that everyone's always talking about. So then, the call to action, you get them on your email list or even your social media, whatever your thing is. I think it should be email marketing. They already have a lot of that know, like, trust. So whether you're selling them products or services, you've already kind of removed some of that skeptical wall, right? Because you've listened to me talk for an hour. You kind of know my story, a little bit of my expertise. So it's not as hard of a sell. I also do a lot of, you can see my website is built to get you to know exactly what I'm about and get you to click over to see my services and my products. I have both on my site. And so, even if you're coming from the podcast or somewhere else, you can see everything that I have laid out. My website, like Stephanie mentioned, is, quite professional. I paid a lot of money for it. So, don't get envy if you're still building your own. If you can go to the Wayback Machine and see what it used to look like in 2019, you will not be as impressed. And so podcast number one, I also do some social media where it's mostly Instagram stories. And I find that when I interact with people, say like Stephanie or somebody I want to be on their podcast, or we just do little back and forth stuff, we can start to tag each other in stories. And I found great success in this. I don't know if anyone's ever brought this up on the podcast, but when you can just network on Instagram, and I see there's another email marketer, her name's Kate Doster. She does a great job of this. She goes on an evening walk every night, and she's always tagging different people, like, come for a walk with me, come for a walk with me. And, you know, after a time, it became consistent. And for a while, I was one of those people that was walking with her. And so I got a ton of followers from her, and I've done the same. And so strategies like that, just using social media the way it's supposed to be used, right? Like email marketing, that's a marketing platform. Social media is a social platform. It's not built for marketing. It is getting there. They should change the name soon, social marketing, right? Like Instagram, all that. But right now they're still social platforms. Average people are using them. And so when you use it the way it's designed, Instagram, they want you to watch stories, they want you to watch videos, they want you to connect with your friends, right? When you're tagging, you know, you get more reach. That's when you can see success, and you can get those clients or subscribers or customers from there. The same with Facebook, right? Facebook wants you to share Facebook videos. They want you to share Facebook memes. They want you to talk in the chat. They want you to tag your friends. They want you to upload photos. They want you to use Messenger. When you can do all that the way it's supposed to be, you know, supposed to be used, when you're using it like a social media, that's when you're being seen more. How else do I get my clients? Referrals as well, right? I get on a podcast, somebody sees me, oh, I don't need your services, but I know my friend was just talking about, oh my gosh, newsletters suck so bad. And I saw you have a newsletter thing. I connected you, right? Stuff like that. Really basic stuff.
Yeah. And I want to just come back to this conversation about social media, social marketing, because everything you say is absolutely accurate. And I find that there is still, I'd love you to comment on this. There is still a lot of my clients who are maybe a little more introverted, which to me is really crazy because I'm like the world's biggest extrovert. And most of my clients are INTs, like they're super introverted. And they loathe the idea of using social media, and they still see it as like wasting time or like playing. And I come from, like, I'm 46. I come from, you know, the world where I remember when we had no internet or social media and we tried to do business in that way. And to me, like, internet technologies and internet marketing is a gift because we had no capabilities to reach people and interact with people in the way that we did before. So when I hear this, or I'm wasting time, or there's like this judgment, right? Like there's this fear that someone is going to see them as silly or frivolous or something like that. Can you talk about social marketing as a tool, and how do we break down this idea that social marketing, like when people think they have to use it, they tend to just go straight to creating content and posting content and thinking but it's a social platform, right? It's moving towards encouraging more and more of the engagement as opposed to the content.
Okay, well, Stephanie already said it. She said her clients think, oh, it's fun, it's a game, I shouldn't take it seriously. Heck yeah, it's a fun and it's a game. That's why it's so addictive. And so just play the game that social media is playing. Like I just mentioned with Kate, you know, going on these walks and, you know, tagging some of her clients that she knows like to go on walks too. That's how it's supposed to be used. I don't think you should take it so seriously where it's, you know, yeah, what is it, like Send Owl or one of those things, like, you know, the Facebook and all that, you know, they're pretty savvy. They are, when you use those automation tools, like they know that's a marketing thing. And we're actually a media platform, ma'am. So we're not going to show that as much. We want you actually on Facebook. We want you actually on Instagram, right? And so that's when you can get a bigger reach. But in general, and this goes for every aspect of business, like my number two, or my two rules that I have for my life and my business is have fun and keep it simple, right? And so just go on social media. What would you normally post if you weren't running a business? How do you want to show up in the world, right? Because on social media, we're definitely not our 100% all aspects, 360 view of ourselves. But even if you weren't using it as a business, what would you share, right? For me, that's NSYNC. I've got them in the background right now. I share a ton of NSYNC memes and like 2000s pop culture stuff. And then, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be an email marketing account. Here's my top 5 tips of the week or whatever. And oh yeah, I'm running a special, or did you think that meme was funny? Come to this live training, I'll tell you some more jokes. And so think about how you can weave that. And this is maybe even a branding thing. Pick a few things that you want in your brand that are fun and relatable so that you can use them on social media. Like I use pop culture on social media to make connections about email marketing. What's something that you can use in your social media that that's what people are doing on social media. It can become part of your brand. And so that it actually does become fun and a game to be on social media, because like I said, it's use the media the way it's supposed to be used and it will treat you just fine. If you're trying to hack the algorithm, automate everything, people, even if they know nothing about internet marketing, like they can just sort of tell like, oh, this is an ad or this is a thing they're trying to sell me on. If you just, have fun with it, keep it simple, don't overthink it, I think that's when you'll start to actually genuinely create those connections with people the way that social media is set up to do.
So the flip side of that, though, is that there are people for whom doing that sounds horribly uncomfortable. And for them, like, you have permission to not use social media in your marketing. You don't have to, right? It's not, if it's generally just something that's completely uncomfortable because that's who you are as a person, not because you've got stories in your head about, oh, I'm going to be judged, or I'm like fearful. If it's just not you, it's okay, right? It's okay. You don't have to be zany. You don't have to be funny. I'm not that. Like, I'm actually really funny, but I'm not zany, right? And so I'm not going to have zany stuff out there. But
I love that word.
When we did my branding exercise, that's what my designer, or who is also my best friend, she put together a really amazing brand kit. And as a result, the photographs we got were perfect. But she said, Steph's fun. She's super funny, but it's this dry, sarcastic wit. She's not zany. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally it. And so people are expecting zany humor from me because they know me as a funny person, but zany is not my brand, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't pull it off, right? So for those people, what do you say to those people who are more introverted, it just doesn't come naturally for them to be going and using socially? What are their alternatives? What are some of their options?
Well, obviously, I think you should just do email marketing. And I think also sometimes it's like, well, I'm an introvert. I don't like showing part of myself, da, da, da. First of all, like, yes, you have permission to not share whatever it is you don't want to share. But at the end of the day, we now live in a world where you do have to show up a little bit as you. Even Coca-Cola is making statements, about social justice. That there is a reason why Coca-Cola, big brands, airlines, these giants, Microsoft, Apple, there's a reason why they are trying to be more like a person. It's because people are now buying from people. Gone are the days of the 50s, 60s, 70s marketing where you can just say, this tastes good, buy it. No, people want to know your stance on things. And of course, I'm not saying, spew your political beliefs or something around, but people want to know that there is a person behind the brand. There's a person behind the company. Like I said, even freaking Coca-Cola has to do this, And so at the end of the day, you have to decide, maybe you sit down, maybe this is your action item for the podcast, and say, okay, what am I willing to share about me, right? What are maybe 3 things? Like for me, it's NSYNC, it's Mountain Dew, and it's that I love the beach. Those are my three things that I will definitely always talk about. And then I can share, I don't have to share zany things about the beach. I don't have to, I can share beautiful photos of the beach or whatever. So you've got to decide, even if you say, well, I'm not a personal brand, there has to be some personality to it. Even Coca-Cola, I'm using that because that's like the biggest brand there ever was, right? You can get a Coke in the desert, okay? And so you do have to decide, okay, these are the things I am willing to share. This is the side of me I am willing to share. And you can do that in email marketing or, social or whatever avenue you want to pick first. For me, I mentioned all my Instagram stuff. I don't do that consistently. My phone is upstairs right now. I couldn't share if I wanted, if inspiration struck me. But when I feel like it, I do it. And that is part of my brand. I'm very consistent in the emails. Social media, it's like, oh, maybe you'll catch me and it'll be a treat, or maybe you won't even notice that I'm not there. So I would challenge you if you're thinking, oh, I can't show part of me. I'm not a marketer. If you're in business, you're a marketer. You have to market yourself somewhere. And this is my serious tone. I don't use it very often, but there comes a time if you want to make, real money and have a real business, you have to have, some sort of marketing. You have to put yourself out there, even just a little bit. Like I said, just pick 3 silly, insignificant things about yourself that, yeah, I'm definitely, if I'm on a podcast, I'm going to mention how much I love the beach. That just makes that personal connection. And remember, people buy from people they trust. So if you can make some sort of personal connection, it doesn't have to be this huge zany thing like Liz Wilcox. I know there's no one else like me. I know it. But it has to be some sort of connection, right? And so I just challenge you to find that for yourself.
But it also could be something quite meaningful, right? It doesn't have to be inconsequential. It doesn't have to be in sync. It could be like, I strongly believe in feminist principles, or I am committed to the advancement of children's rights, or something like that, right? But if it's in here, and I'm pointing to my heart for those who are not watching, if it's in there, that's what you need to tap into. And for me, for a little while, it was roller derby, right? Like I played roller derby and I flew planes, and so it was like fight or flight, cool. Right? Like literally, I was fighting when it's like, roller derby is like a legal gang fight, right? And then I was flying planes, so it was like fight or flight, and it fit really well for entrepreneurship, right? I don't play and I don't fly anymore, but it was like those were my things. And it just makes it makes you relatable. It gives everybody some place that they can meet you, because it's not wrapped up in judgment or anything like that, right? So in terms of the work that you do and the actual like email marketing and email writing and the done for you services that you've created for yourself, why would someone choose to work with you as opposed to another email copywriter?
I love this question. Thanks so much for allowing me to brag about myself. Okay, so on a lighter note, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I didn't start out as a service provider. I didn't start out seeing behind the scenes of 7-figure launches and having celebrity clients and, whatever else. I started out as a blogger in an RV, like really just trying to freaking make it work. And I found that email marketing was my little, secret to success, where other people, RV bloggers were like, I just can't sell to these people. Because remember, these people are RVers. They are usually 70% of my audience was men in their 60s. And these men, I am not a man in my 60s, if you can't tell by my voice. And these people, they didn't want to pay for electricity. They are very, I'm going to say it, they're cheap. They want the cheapest RV. They don't want to pay for electricity. They are getting half price on just about everything in the RV industry. You have to understand, like, it's the art of the deal, right? On both sides, like, consumers and producers, we're all just trying to strike a deal, right? Like the TV show, let's make a deal. That's the industry I was in. And they also had never heard of online products, they're in their 60s. So it was like, how is this, young girl in her 20s with a little bit of sass, like selling to these, old guys? And it was through my email marketing. It was through my ability, like we just talked about, to show sides of myself that were relatable to, let's call them rich, too rich, with 2 kids off to college and 1 wife, right? And that's what set me apart. And I was able to build 3 businesses that way. And so, once I will say, I built an online course. I had 141 people on my wait list. At cart close day, I had made 141 sales. And so as I started telling that story, people were like, oh my gosh, how the hell did you do that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is pretty crazy. And to me, it was like, well, my goal was to sell double that. So, not that I saw it as, a failure, but I was like, yeah, I kind of lost steam. But really it was because of my email marketing strategy. And so I started teaching it to people, and I went to a conference with copywriters. I had no idea what a copywriter was. I learned what a copywriter was. I said, oh, I do that for myself and I have great success. So I sold that business, went all in. And so that's a really long way of saying, like, this is a framework that I developed for myself, unlimited time, a $0 budget. I did all of this like by myself. And, I really am on a freaking mission to make sure everyone knows, like, email marketing can be for you. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be fun, whatever that definition is for you. And it can be really simple and lucrative. So I want everyone to have a piece of the pie, because where I came from, very poor, just even a couple of years ago, not even a couple of years ago, I got my mom off 8 Mile in Detroit. Finally, she lived there in a really, I won't get into it, but like, if I can do it with my background, with my limited internet, with my limited support, like, I want everyone to do it. And I wanted my framework with everyone. It's on my homepage. You don't even have to opt in. Like, my framework is on the page. That's how much I want everyone to know, like, you can make money. You can build this email list. It's possible.
Okay. I know we're getting close to time, but I want to ask you this. What's the one thing
Sure.
that has served you best in your whole business building adventure?
Well, I guess 2 things. Number 1, finding people that believed in me. So having friends trying to do the same thing. A lot of people in my personal life did not believe in me, wanted me to quit, thought I was crazy. I had a lot of resistance, and that's something I don't normally talk about. But I had a lot of people, I had people that were like, yeah, if anyone can do it, Liz can. But I had people that were very close to me that said, this is ridiculous. Like, you're wasting your time. So finding those people that were like, yeah, I'm trying to do this too. Let's do it together. And say, oh yeah, Liz, that's a good idea. The first time anyone said that was like, wow, okay, I'm doing it. This is real. My ideas matter. So finding those people that believe in you, but also believing in yourself. Like I said, kind of at the middle of the podcast, I was like, I just refused to quit. It didn't matter if I had to, sit out in the rain and publish that newsletter. I was getting it done. And just having that, I don't know, kind of a fervor in your belly for the future, and just really believing that it can happen for me really served me well, coupled with the other people that believed the same in me and I believed in them. Oh man, there's no such thing as a solopreneur. You've got to have people in your corner.
And I think what, the phrase that I use with a lot of my clients is they come in that
Mm-hmm.
confidence issue is what really holds them back. And I'm like, look, you borrow my confidence for a little while, right?
Oh, I love that, Stephanie. Yeah, write that down, folks. Take her confidence. Take mine. Yes, here, have it. You can't see me, but I'm throwing it out like Oprah in cars. You get some confidence.
You get some confidence.
I love that, Stephanie. I also
think it's like, I happen to have that sort of, I'm more determined than I am smart. And so
Amen.
I will just go and do something, even if I'm not sure about it. Right. And I think that that's the place a lot of people just kind of hesitate, right? I'm not sure about it. I have uncertainty. And so I'd better not do it. And I've always been that kind of person that doesn't really care what people think about me. And so I will just, that doesn't cripple me or hold me back, but it does for a lot of people. And so, if you can give them your confidence for a little while, I think that that's probably what's resonating with a lot of people who are working with you, is like they see that in you and they don't see it in themselves. And I wonder if maybe that's part of your brand.
Yes, actually, I have a sticky note right here. You can't see, I'm holding it up, but it says, my definition of success is to be an example of what's possible. And so, yeah, like, look at me, please. And just, maybe I can do one thing she said, right? And, maybe I can just have that 5 seconds of bravery to act. And then it's like a snowball. It'll just start happening. The confidence doesn't come before the action. You take action, and then you learn like, oh yeah, awesome. And you get that confidence. So yeah, borrow it from us, from your dog that's, just peeing right in front of you in the house, whatever the confidence is. Sorry, my sister has a dog and she lives with me, and the dog is always pissing in front of me. And I'm like, this is my house. Why? Luckily it's very small. Anyway, just borrow the confidence, be the chihuahua that's just going to pee anywhere without regard to the owner. And I think that will really serve you, because, you've got to take that action, and then all those feelings of grit, determination, confidence, that's going to come. I promise you.
And it comes in little tiny baby steps, right? And you just do the one thing, you realize that you could, and you didn't die and nothing happened, and we're not saving lives. And then the next thing, most people worry that they're going to put something out and everybody's going to judge them on it. But the reality is that we have to work really hard just to get the attention of like a couple of people. And so there, no one is sitting waiting for you to put something out so that they can cast their judgment. You have to like bang them over the head and say, did you see what I just put out there? Right? That's the reality.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. I always say, like, I'm not the president of the United States. If someone gets offended, or I have to apologize, or it's a flop and this is a waste of my time, like, I'm not actually like hurting the future of the earth. So I'm just going to try it.
That's right. Okay. Right. I have one question that I ask everybody on the show, and I'd love to get your perspective on it. What is the difference between what's real and what we hear out there in kind of the online business world? What is the biggest thing?
What's the difference between what's real and what we hear?
Yeah. What, like, the stories we get, or what are we being marketed that, really doesn't ring true for you in your experiences?
Okay. That you can just live this life on automation, or these profits on automation. The passive income thing is, yes, you can get there. And I am living proof. I am getting there. There are sales coming into my business for actually the time of this recording. It's August 2021. July 2021 was the first time in my business I made a sale every day without actively selling something. Like, things were just coming in. But I put a ton of work in. It's like when you write a book, you get passive income for the rest of your life. How long did it take you to write that book? And so this idea of passive income, there's, it takes many, many steps, right? All those little baby steps to turn it into this machine, so to speak, that everyone's always trying to sell you. And it still requires upkeep. If I turn my website off tomorrow, I forgot to pay the bill, that passive income would stop, right? If I stopped doing podcast interviews like this, maybe the people would stop, right? And so there's always going to be something. I know everyone always says, start a business, have this freedom and flexibility. Not really. Like, if you want freedom, Seth Godin says this: if you want freedom, don't start a business. Because, especially the first, let's say 5 years, it's really going to be like, yes, you have freedom from other people telling you what to do, but you really do have to, build that foundation, and then start, with your building blocks, start to build it up. So passive income, to me, while I don't think it's a myth, it does not happen very quickly. It's a long road.
It comes from a lot of investment in intentionally building. And like my friend Meg, she, she's an SEO expert, and she talks about SEO being like putting marketing money in the bank, right? Like that's the closest we get to being able to build something that serves us over time. But you still have to do the work, and you still have to feed the machine. So I think the freedom that we're actually achieving is just we're trading one freedom for another, right? And yes, if you're clear that your ideal state is that you are making money from something you don't have to deliver in your time, you're still putting your time and effort into delivering, feeding the machine and delivering your marketing activities. But that certainly does give you more freedom and more flexibility in your time. And you don't, you aren't tied to, sitting in front of someone giving them services. But we're just trading. But there is no such thing as a business that runs on autopilot, right? There is always something we're doing to feed a business.
Right. Amen to that.
Yeah. Okay, Liz, oh my gosh, I loved talking to you. We are at time. I want to be respectful of your time. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yeah. So of course I want you to join my email list and I want you to check out my website that we've talked so much about. Go to lizwilcox.com. In the top right-hand corner, there's a hot pink button. Of course, it says free email swipes. If you want to know how to get started on email, I wrote an entire welcome sequence. You've got 3 newsletter examples. And then everybody seems, this is a fan favorite, 52 subject lines that have garnered me over a 40% open rate on each one. So you can use those as prompts. And if you just need more inspiration about how to actually get started with email marketing, like I said, on the homepage, my framework is right there. And, if you join my email list, I also want you to take any email I write for you, steal it, use it as your own, and ask me any follow-up questions that you want. I'm always happy to answer.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I know everybody's going to go and check you out and learn a little bit more about you. And that's the whole idea of this show, is to, extend these amazing people out to a bigger audience. So I really appreciate that. And I think you'll have a lot of people taking you up on that offer. We could talk for probably another hour, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time today. We're going to wrap up the episode. This has been such an amazing conversation. I have so many little sound bites that I've been making note of as we've been going, but make sure to go out and check out Liz, all of the incredible things she has to offer. She's a giver. And thank you again for being here. If you've enjoyed today's content, I would love for you to give us a review on whatever platform you're on. This helps us share these stories with an even bigger audience. And until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep being real.